On this episode of Travels with Bill, we're looking at the mega storms that affected Manitoba on Father's Day 2022. We'll see the storms, we'll see some of the aftermath, including all the damage and destruction in the Bonito area, and we'll also look at some of the damage down near Binscarth as well. Make sure you stick around to see it all, and hit that subscribe button right now so you see our future episodes. Well, we're just south of Binscarth, Manitoba, looking at one of the many storms that happened on Father's Day. See the green tinge to the clouds? We stopped because we certainly didn't want to be where the green was. They say that's never a good idea. Now, we don't know if there was a tornado in there, but certainly this storm was warned for a tornado, as were others, including one at Roblin and one at Bonito, Manitoba. As we were driving along, the emergency alerts kept going off because the storms kept getting worse, warning after warning for possible tornadoes. Well, it's a little bit tough to get good pictures of a thunderstorm because once it starts to rain, it's really hard to film them, right? So here's some photos of clouds. These are sped up a little bit. This is time lapse from south of the Duck Mountains, and then we'll get into some more of the stuff we filmed. So we're in Bonito, Manitoba. Now here is some flooding. The reason? They tell us 3.5 inches of rain in less than 15 minutes. Well, this is about an hour and a half, 2 hours after the storm, and the water's been working its way down the Duck Mountain. As it comes out of the mountain, it's just coming into the edge of Bonito, and as you can see, while that was a lane, except it's completely covered in water, this whole yard is covered in water, and it just keeps coming and coming. Now, because there's so much slope here, if you go back a mile or two, the water's actually already gone because it's just kind of following along as it goes over each road and through each culvert. Here's a little close-up of it going over that lane. See how dirty it is and how fast-moving it is? In fact, in all the fields around Bonito, you can see huge wash marks even up over the roads. In fact, many roads have multiple washouts. In one 4-mile stretch, I counted about 20 places the water had overtopped the road right after the storm as the water was all trying to get away. Another picture of this just from a different angle here of just how much flooding there is. Now, this is in the park in Bonito. It's something neat. See the air bubbling up through the ground there? The water's come up fairly quickly here, and there's some air underground, so it's actually bubbling up. If you look across, see all the different places the bubbles are happening to? At first, I thought maybe this was a sewer line or something backing up, but it's just air from the ground. It looks like the entire park's water is boiling. It's really cool. I can't say I've ever seen anything like it before, so I had to stop, take a photo of it, because you know, when I see something cool, that's the whole part of the channel. Well, of course, here's one of the many trees in Bonito that's down some flooding here. This is just the back side of that park we were looking at a moment or two ago. Let's hop into the air and take a look at some more damage. Now, this is actually my uncle's farmyard. See the bins? One's way up there in the top right-hand corner. We're going to lose track of him right away as we fly around. See the other ones, though? I count 3 bins in the dugout, then a couple more laying down at the top of the frame, one laying down in the middle, and the trees. Look at the trees. See how there's no leaves left? We'll take a bit of a closer look at some trees a little bit later on in the episode to see how much damage was done. So to recap the storm then, what we had was a lot of rain, about 3.5 inches in 15 minutes, a lot of wind, about 150 kilometers an hour is what people are talking about. Now, I don't know if that was measured, it's just the number that's being thrown around, and we also have a lot of hail. So much hail, in fact, the ground was white after the storm was done. So that combination of wind and hail is what's done most of the damage. Of course, where you see the flooding, that's the rain doing its thing there too. But look at how much stuff is wrecked here, bin after bin after bin. In fact, this is just down the road a little bit, somebody else's bin that ended up right on the road. Yeah, that's the gravel road, and that's the bin. You can see where people have been driving around it. Now, obviously, it was empty, but still, they're very heavy, and it's come quite a ways. It didn't take out the hydro line. That was kind of nice, and it did leave room for people to drive on by. If you look in the background, you can actually see another bin tipped over just in the back there, too, because they lost 2 bins out of that yard site. Now, in all the counting I did, I figure roughly 20 bins or so wrecked. Not just bins, though. Here's a hydro line that didn't fare so well either. That's a hydro pole, of course, but it's not supposed to be laying in the ditch. Not a lot of poles were down here. Later on, we'll show you a few near Binscarth that fell down, too, on one of the main lines. Here, just a couple poles, but you can see how the wires are in the ditch. Obviously, with the wires laying around like that. No electricity going through. Manitoba Hydro crews were out for over a day after the storm, trying to get everything restored. Quick peek back at the bins in that yard site. Now, I wanted to show you how these two are piled on top of each other, because it's kind of, well, I guess it's cool to see unless they're your bins, right? I kind of feel bad for my uncle, but it is what it is. I can't change it now, can I? This is a bunch of dandelions. Look at how destroyed they are. Before the storm, these had flowers on them, they had leaves all over the place, and all that's left now, well, it looks like a whippersnipper's been at them, but nothing touched these except the storm. Here's some of the trees too. See how the bark is actually peeled off of the trees? The storm, so intense, it's peeled the bark off of branch after branch after branch. I'll give you a little bit of a better view here on a different tree. See how that's happened? Well, the trees aren't going to live through this. When you've had damage like that, the trees are going to end up dying. The only reason they look still kind of alive now is they really haven't had any time to get to the dying part yet. Here's a set of harrows in the yard. Now, for the most part, they stayed kind of where they were, but, well, not all the way. Of course, they would have been tipped up sitting quite nicely. Now, it's a bit of a mess there, too. Skip ahead to another farmyard here. See the bin in the creek? Well, we're going to go fast forward here until we get a little closer to the yard so you can see some more of the damage. Both of these yard sites in that area between Benito and Durban, that seems to be where the damage was worst out of this storm system. Lots of flooding here. As you can see, a little creek normally runs through here, but it's well over its banks at this point. We were here again 2.5 hours after the storm. We had to wait for it to get calm enough that we could actually fly before we could do these photos. So the flooding isn't the best, but you can certainly see the damage to the bins. In fact, if you look at the White House over there, that missing door from the shed is actually piercing the house. It flew all the way over there, went into the house. Lots of damage to the house from that as well. Water damage inside. Windows smashed in a lot of places. We'll show you some windows in a minute. Look at those big bins. Now they're just caved right in. They didn't come off their foundations, but there's certainly not much left of them, is there? Now, I suppose some of them, maybe they could be saved a little bit. That first one in the row, though, hard to believe there's much of that that's worth saving. Almost the entire bin is destroyed. See lots of the smaller ones moved around as well. If you're a farmer, see that? They've got the stairs on them. Those are the big bins, and that's what happened to them from the storm. You can just imagine how intense this was. A little closer to the house here, I wanted to show you the trees. See how there's no leaves left? All the branches laying out there too? Those trees have been absolutely destroyed. Now, as it turns out, many years ago, back when we had a greenhouse, we sold them, those trees. Different people lived here at the time, but those poor trees, they were so nice when we sold them. Another farmyard. This one's a couple miles away, but still the same sort of problem going on here. We've got grain bins laying, and if you take a look at the trees, we're not waiting for them to leaf out here. These were fully leafed out, fully grown trees. They were ready to go for summer. Now the leaves are absolutely missing. They look just like sticks. Many of these too have had the hail so intense and driven by that wind that it's peeled the bark off of them. So the ultimate question that keeps coming up, was it a tornado or not? Well, it certainly doesn't look like it was. From the damage we were out filming the last day or so, it looks like this was likely what they call a straight wind or a plow wind. The damage field is about 3 to 4 miles across. It's very rare for a tornado to have that much damage and not, of course, see worse than this. Here's another yard site. That was a farm shop, a little bit of a shed going on there. It's not anymore. It's collapsed. It took a little outbuilding behind it as well. And you can see here again, huge damage to the leaves of the trees. A tornado would have had a much narrower path. When this is so wide a path, it pretty much for sure confirms it to be a plow wind. If it was a tornado that was 3 miles wide, well, it would be a record setter. Plus, also, you wouldn't see the house still existing because where this shop is flattened, there's other damage on the other side. So really, it's just more of a wind. More trees for you to look at here. Again, these were fully leafed out too, and you see just a little bit of green left on them. See the green behind them though? Will lift up and go over. That is all the leaves that came off of the trees during the storm. It's intense how bad it was out here. I've seen a couple clips of video from after the storm was dying down some. For the most part, everybody was hiding in their basements when the storm was actually happening because there was a tornado warning here and people thought genuinely it was a tornado coming to get them. We're in Durban now. Look at the house in the foreground and the gray house in the background. See all the holes? The white one has gray holes, the gray one has white holes. That's holes in the siding from the amount of hail that came through here. The trees here again, barely any leaves to speak of. Even some of the spruce trees have been stripped of their needles. But here's a building made of metal. Well, it's dented a little bit, but certainly nothing the same as the ones made with plastic siding. This is the Durban post office. You can see some of the windows smashed partway. The ones with the boards, well, those are smashed completely. None of this was like that. That paint's been stripped off, the windows smashed, all from the driving hail. The hail was coming from the west, heading to the east, so anything with that west exposure has damage on it. Some vehicles destroyed as well, or at least close to destroyed. One of the people that works at the radio station, their car, $17,500 damage from the hail. There's another house just on the outskirts of Durban. You can see the hail damage really clearly here. Before the storm, that was perfect siding in excellent condition. Now half the siding's missing. It's all been smashed in. That's actually the house wrap you're seeing in behind. The tree out in front of the house certainly isn't looking too particularly happy. And we'll pull back here in a moment and show you the trees around the house too. Well, you can see them in the yard there. Not good at all. Hey, if you haven't already subscribed to Travels with Bill, we'd love for you to do that. Make sure you click the thumbs up button too. We have videos from all over the place, sometimes storm coverage like this, but other times just neat places to see. We'd love to have you as a subscriber, and clicking thumbs up will help make sure that we can make more of these videos too. Look at that, bins in the back, they're absolutely perfectly fine. We're about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from where we saw that massive destruction to bins, and it's so hit or miss like this during the storm. Some are fine, some are not. Just kind of luck of the draw where you happen to be at the time and what happened to you. Certainly showing you lots of pictures of the damage here. It's good to think about being prepared for storms. No power in some of these areas for well over 24 hours as crews work to fix it. Here's another row of trees, and they're pretty much destroyed, aren't they? Be interesting to see a few months from now if they can leaf out again, or if too much bark damage has been done and the trees just end up dying. Well, Bonito Durban had a lot of damage, but this is by Bin Scarth. The main hydro line there, 5 poles in a row snapped off as a little bit of a plow wind went through here too. This one we let off, then we had some of that green in the storm. This is where the green was, right in through here. We stayed back a bit so we weren't here. I'm pretty sure if the van had been on the road here, we would be over in the field with the rest of the hydro poles, because it was super intense. When you looked up, you could certainly see rotation in the clouds. That was happening in all 3 of the big storms that went through. Certainly even when filming the storm system, you'd brace for the wind coming at you the one way. Seconds later, it would be going a different way and almost knocking you over in that direction. This is a bin near Binscarth. Get it? A bin near Binscarth? Okay, maybe it's too early for humor yet. This one came from about 1 mile away, landed on the side of the highway here, came over the railway track to do it. And you couldn't see it really well from this angle. It was too windy to fly, but you could actually see indents in the fields. You could see one in the ditch there as well, where the bin rolled through the ditch. Chunks of bin spread back all the way to where it came from, about 1 mile down the road. Here's some more of that storm system rolling through. This is south of Binscarth, where I was filming as the storm went by. I didn't make it to Bonito until after because I got caught back in this storm and didn't want to try punching through it when it looked so bad and, well, really so green. This is playing at 300% speed, which is why you can see the clouds moving so much. But I want to show you just how they're rolling and moving and changing. Kind of crazy, isn't it? Well, that does it for our look at the Father's Day storm of 2022. If you're one of the people that got damaged from this storm, well, so sorry that happened to you. Nobody was hoping that was going to happen. Even those of us that like to see the clouds certainly don't like to see where they touch down and make troubles like they did. See that green tinge again at the back of that storm? That is scary when you're standing there hoping that it keeps going away from you instead of getting closer. Farewell for now, from just south of Binscarth, and of course Bonito and Durban, Manitoba. We'll see you next time on a future episode of Travels with Bill.